Hi everyone, and welcome back to another watercolor class. So today we're going to be doing a little hummingbird by request from Katie. Hi Katie! And what I wanted to say about this one is, you know, there's not, you can pick all kinds of different colors. There's not just one right way. So we're taking a little bit of artistic license on this, that we're not trying to paint one necessarily as you see it in nature. You see I took a little liberty to do some blowing here at the tail. So the things I think that are important to keep in mind for this are, you want maybe just a tiny bit of distinction here where the wing feathers are coming. And then being able to have that distinction between this wing and that wing. So here I've got, a darker color, and I've brought a different color in here, and I've also just left a little tiny edge of a lighter white, not really a white space, but it's a little lighter color that allows visually for us to have that distinction here. So I've got the lighter color here and the darker color here. To draw this in, the shape is pretty basic. We're going to take and draw in a curved line that comes down here. So from under the chin and the beak down to the belly. I tend to do that part first. And then I'll establish kind of where the head is and where the beak comes, and then kind of establish my basic shape of the wings. So I've got, an edge here and an edge here, and just this is loosely done in. And then I just leave this open because it's going to be however the watercolor kind of blows off. I can do a little bit of directional part with that. So I will have to pick up my board and turn this around when I do that blowing, because that's the only way I'm going to get it to go off in that direction. But that part will be a little later. So let me make sure everything is still in the frame. All right, make sure that edge is in there. So I'm not using a whole lot of different colors here. So I'm going to start off with some lemon yellow. Since that's kind of my lighter color, I wanted these really bright greens in here. And I'm just going to kind of lay down a little bit of that in here. So this gives me a chance here while I'm working to go ahead and go over that watercolor pencil and let that kind of melt away. That too wet because I'll have more color to feed into that. And then again here on the top. All right, and then on this part, keep in mind that this wing here is coming back on this side of the shoulder. And so you can see here, I've brought this line down like a little bit in here, just so I've got one kind of coming one way and I'll have one coming the other. So we have that distance across his back between those. So I'll get a little bit of my yellows laid in. Just kind of have some of this kind of popping out there, and I can go ahead and take a little bit of the yellow and blow that. So here's where I'm going to need to flip my board. And then I want this kind of soupy. Just so I have some little bits of that yellow coming in underneath what all I've got going here. And we'll just kind of layer that. All right. And so that's still going to be a little damp. So now I'm going to bring in a little bit of my sap green, and I'm going to bring that because I want it kind of a nice lime green here. And then I'm just going to start to bring in some of this. So when I'm doing these little parts of the wing, I'm going to use that tip of the brush to kind of help give a little bit of just a little distinction there. When I painted this, I was actually on the phone, and so I wasn't really thinking too much about really particulars of things. So sometimes that's just a good way, like, not to overthink things too much, but just to have that chance to kind of go with the flow on things. All right, so I'm going to soften this edge here, and I'm going to be coming into there more. So I'm going to start to bring in a little bit of my Viridian green. I probably need to wet these a little more. Here, maybe I'll bring a little bit in here, a little here on his back, so I'll kind of establish this part where that wing is going to come, and that back of his head is going down, and then I'll blot all that out and just and soften that. So if I don't want to keep pulling that green more up that way, if I come in with, you know, clean brush and kind of pull this way, I'm going to actually like lift off if I've got a little more of that green than I want. Okay, and I'm going to grab a little bit of the phthalo blue with that. In case you're wondering why that looks a little different, that's got a little bit of that phthalo blue in it. Okay, I'll come down here under the belly. And again, I want to just soften this out. Bring some of that color here on the top part of this wing. I'm going to cross that up so I'm connecting on this side. Now obviously we don't want to leave a distinctive brush mark like that, so I'm going to go ahead and come and soften that out. And it's okay, like if I kind of left this a little textured in here, I'm going to kind of do that same thing here on the wing. And then I'll come and bring this down. And keep that all soft there. And like a little bit of green. So do a little more of the phthalo blue and the green Such a pretty teal color. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up my little panel here, and this is where I'll come and I'll tap some of this in. Oh, that is not my brush. Okay, and then we'll come back and we'll add another layer in on that too later. Okay, are we up behind us? All right. Let's pick up a little sap green, and let's kind of tie some of this into his body. So again, I'm just going to put a little color there, and I can even kind of come in and distinguish a little bit of this kind of edge of his body before his wing starts to come up. So I've got a little bit of that right in here. Just, it doesn't, there. See how if I soften that up a little bit, and I can come in and, so, you know, I'm not really paying a whole lot of attention. You know, you can kind of see this as a guide, but I just, you know, recommend once you kind of know where things are gonna go, you know, just kind of go ahead and play with it and just kind of follow your instincts on what you want to do, as long as you keep in mind some of those basic things, like making sure you can tell that difference between the wings. And I'm just going to add a little texture in here, kind of make that nice and fluffy. Brush there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I can probably blow this one more time here, and I'll come back and work on the beak and the eye. So let me pull this around. Tap a little bit of that there. Okay, and I think I'm going to do a little bit like on the stronger blue here. So if I have a spot that maybe needs something, I can just come in and tap a little tiny bit there just to get a little variety in there. There we go. This is just where you want to just kind of fidget and play a little bit. And so for my beak and my eye, I'm going to be using a little drier mix. I want the burnt umber. And I'm going to bring just a tiny bit of black into that. So I don't want it really black, but I don't want it just brown. I want kind of a nice deep. And so this, I'm going to blot out my brush well. And here's where I can start to build. And so a little trick too, like when you're doing something like with the beak, you know, rather than having it stop bluntly across there, it's always going to look a little more natural if you kind of taper it in how it attaches like that. This has had some time to dry, so I should be okay to go ahead and add my eye here. And I usually just kind of tap and fill these in. So if I want to leave a little spot for some eye reflection. Dry a little bit. Okay, so while we're letting that dry, I'll come and it's always optional, but I'm going to add a few little splatters. So I'll just kind of bring a couple in around here, or maybe do more than one color. And if you need to, you could always come in if you needed to strengthen this up with the gel pen here. I also brought in, I don't know if you can see that, but right here, this part, I just brought a little bit, just for a little bit of, like, kind of in the water line. And then I can, even that little gel pen, you can kind of soften it out a little bit. I might come in and do just a tiny bit more around the eye. Right in here. Gives a little more depth to his eye. All right, and there you go, a cute little hummingbird that's kind of fun and playful. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any comments, please leave those below. And I hope that you'll take time to subscribe because I try to keep new content coming out. I've been a little slow this week because I've had some other house projects. But hopefully we'll see you for the next class, and you can paint along with me then too.